What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Quill and Hammer Reforging Fiction. I'm Trevor. This is Zach. And Zach, what we doing today?
Today we're going over Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the film, talking about what was good, what was bad, and what definitely needs to be changed. So, Trev, why don't you start us off? Tell us what you liked about the film. What do you think went well?
Okay, there were a lot of things about the film that I thought they did a good job with, to be honest. The thing that I appreciated the most was I kind of really enjoyed the tone for the first half of the movie
Okay,
where like it's a little bit lighthearted. You don't have as much like Debbie Downer kind of feelings, I guess. I don't know the right way to say it, but like I'm contrasting it to the previous movie, Order of the Phoenix, where like everything is pretty bleak, which it was like, in the film, in the books, like Voldemort is back, you've got no one knows what's going on. Everyone thinks Harry is crazy. But then I feel like in Half Blood Prince, it's like the calm before the storm at the end of the series.
right.
You've got Harry who's, you know, he's the chosen one. I am the chosen one.
She thinks you're the chosen one.
But I am the chosen one. Okay.
And he's trying to get the memory out of Slughorn. He's trying to, yeah, I mean, you bring Quidditch back into it. Quidditch
Right.
back. You've got the whole Ron, Lavender, Hermione awkwardness that I think is really cool.
What's she doing here? I might ask you the same question. I happen to be his girlfriend. I happen to be his friend. That made me laugh.
Um, it's just kind of funny to see all of it, and I don't know, it's fun to see that side of the books come back to life because it gets progressively more and more dark, I guess. It's heavier, it's darker, starting with, gosh, the Chamber of Secrets. It
Right.
just gets progressively worse and worse. Not worse, that's the wrong word. Dark gets progressively heavier. And so this is a breath of fresh air right before you start the finale, I guess.
I can appreciate that. I really liked bringing Quidditch back into it. I think I don't know. We talked about this in the last couple of films about bringing, the normal part of their lives into the films a little bit more, and I think Quidditch was a good way to do that. Um, but I do think that with that lighthearted tone, with showing more of those plot points, especially, the love triangle between Ron, Hermione, and Lavender, that sort of stuff. There were some things that I think they left out that could have been more impactful to the overall story. So what do you feel about that? Do you feel like they made a trade-off with anything, or are you happy with what they left in the film?
Uh, for the most part, I'm happy with the choices they made in the film. I think, like I said, I like the tone at to begin with, especially because, spoiler alert, Dumbledore dies at the end, and you've got the entire last 30 or 40 minutes of the film is such a dark, you go into the cave and Dumbledore's drinking the potion, and then you have the Inferi, and then you get back and Dumbledore is killed,
Right.
and so I like the tone. I like it to be a little bit softer before you get to that, but there are things that yeah, they needed to add specifically to set up the rest of the film.
Right.
And and mostly the things that I wish they had done were would have been to add more of the memories in
Okay.
because really like the entire point of this book was to try and give as much information to Harry as possible so he could defeat Voldemort because Dumbledore knew he was dying, at the very beginning of the film. He's dying. And so he knew he was going to die. He knew by the end of the year that Snape was going to kill him on Dumbledore's orders, to protect Snape's position, to protect, Draco Malfoy, who isn't a killer. And so like you have to prepare Harry for when Dumbledore's gone. And to be honest, we kind of feel like he didn't get as prepared as he should have before the seventh book.
Right.
And so they missed those memories. Now to recap the memories, they showed I believe in the book you have the first memory is showing Tom Riddle and the Gaunts, right? Uh, you've got the uncle and the grandpa and then his mom all together and they're kind of fighting over the necklace and the did they have the ring?
I think they had both. Yeah, I think eventually Voldemort comes and takes the ring from his uncle, but I'm pretty sure both the locket and the ring came from the Gaunt family.
I think you're right. So I'm trying to think how it happened, but so they had the ring and the locket, and then when Voldemort's mom, Merope, and
Something like that.
like I can't remember how you pronounce it, to be honest. But she runs away with the locket, doesn't know what it's worth, sells it to Borgin and Burke,
Hmm.
um, and for like nothing, and then some lady, that old lady, buys it, and so you start there, and then the next thing you have is Dumbledore meeting Tom, and Tom learning he's a wizard. You kind of have the point of it is that he's collecting prizes, kind of he was stealing things from the kids, at the orphanage. Then you have this memory of gosh, I'm trying to remember the order. Did you have Slughorn's memory next? The one that Slughorn modified. You have kind of like uh there was one with like a Ministry of Magic person going and visiting uh the uncle. The grandpa died or something. I can't remember the details, but like, Voldemort framed his uncle for killing his parents. That wasn't even or his parents, his dad and his grandparents. You don't have that anywhere in the film.
Right.
And then you don't have, after Hogwarts, he instead of like going to the ministry or doing anything, takes a job at Borgin and Burke's, and that's where he meets that old lady. He kills her and frames the house elf. He, um, steals the locket and whatever there.
And
Then,
don't forget the cup of
oh,
Helga
the cup.
Hufflepuff.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, he steals the cup and the locket from that lady.
And I
Then,
think for me, these were important points because how does Harry know that he's looking for the cup of Helga Hufflepuff?
right,
It's like it sings to him when he happens to be in Bellatrix's vault
right,
at Gringotts. But it's like, no, he knew what he was looking for almost everything.
right,
There were only two uncertainties, and that was potentially something from Rowena Ravenclaw and then Nagini, and that was it.
right,
But, they it's like it makes it feel in the next film that Harry is just flying by the seat of his pants, which I mean to a degree he was,
right,
but he at least knew what he was supposed to be looking for.
right. That's the entire point. Is it's like, one, you're getting a better understanding of Voldemort, but two, you need these, at least one of them. You need to, show the old lady and Tom, being a little charming and then killing her once she shows him the things.
Hmm.
You need something so you can have a talk about, yeah, we're looking for Horcruxes, and it's really important. And if we're correct and he wanted seven, and that's what you learn from Slughorn's memory is, you know, he wanted seven, excuse me. You're looking then for seven items that he, or maybe not seven items, but you assume that he's now got seven part soul. And so you have to think, okay, well, one was the ring, two was the diary, three was the locket, four was what was four? I guess his own soul. Five was something of Nagini or was Nagini, but six was supposed to be, gosh, why can't I think of it?
The diadem.
The diadem, and then
Did you say the cup?
the cup. The cup, the locket, the ring, the snake, the diadem, Nagini, Voldemort's own soul. And that's seven. So it's like you didn't talk about any of that. So you don't know that Nagini might be a Horcrux. You don't know that you're looking for a locket or the cup or, it's like, cool. Voldemort, or not Voldemort, Dumbledore took care of the ring. Yeah, great. Well, then what? I guess Harry stabbed the diary, which there you go. But you have no idea what you're looking for after this. And to be
Right.
honest, and sorry I keep rambling, the other thing that really bugged me was like Dumbledore's attitude. Um, the way that they found out, or not they found out, the way that they portrayed the scene where they finally viewed Slughorn's memory in the movie was like, oh no, he's got Horcruxes. This is worse than I thought. But Dumbledore in the book, if you remember, was like, I was already pretty sure. This is just
Right.
confirmation of, that he was doing Horcruxes and that he wanted seven,
Right.
and so
And
now we have a number.
I think it's so hard, but one of the biggest flaws over the whole series, I think, is changing, subtly changing some of the characters like that.
Right,
Does that really matter to the overall plot of the franchise? No. But you're doing a disservice to the character,
right,
you know, and we see that all throughout, especially with Dumbledore, that he he's not as calm and collected and all powerful, all knowing as he seems in the books. It's like he's gentle but powerful in the books, but then he kind of is a little erratic in the films, and I think that does a disservice to Dumbledore and to the relationship he had with Harry, so I think that's one of my bigger problems just overall with this movie specifically, but the franchise, the franchise as a whole.
Right. I do agree, and you and I have talked about the Ron, you know, I call it the Ron factor, but that's from Kim Possible, isn't it? The Ron
Oh
factor.
yeah, I think it is.
I didn't mean to throw that out there, but now, go on a tangent. It's the Ron factor. Um, but anyway, so you got Ron and they change him and kind of turn him into the comedic humor a little bit, and it's like they didn't need to do that.
Right.
Um, but I feel like the Dumbledore part of it is the hardest for me to swallow because but like I don't know how you would change it necessarily because well, I mean I do know how you would change it, but like it's hard with Richard Harris dying, you know.
I know. I know.
Because then you've got the second Dumbledore coming in who is a fantastic actor, but that he is trying to be not just copying Richard Harris, which I, agree with. They're not the same actor. He shouldn't try and be the same actor, but there could have been a bit more, you know, calm Dumbledore, quietly powerful
Yes.
Dumbledore.
Yes.
Um, because I think in the books, you don't even realize how powerful Dumbledore is and how like scary or whatever until book four when
Hmm.
at the very end of the movie he or not movie of the book when they go and realize that Crouch has you know been whatever in imitating Moody, copying him, impersonating, that's the right
There
word.
you go. That's the
I
right
was like,
word.
what is the word,
There's a
Zach?
word.
That he's impersonating Moody, and so when that happens, he's furious, and Harry finally sees like, oh, this is this is why Voldemort is afraid of Dumbledore
Hmm.
right here, and you don't really see that difference. Um, and I don't know. It's just it is hard. The subtle changing of the characters, like I said, it does a disservice. Now, I don't know how you would fix that again, because each actor has their own choice, and ideally Richard Harris wouldn't have died
Right.
after whatever he would have lived to be 110 years old and would have been a hale man the entire time.
Right. Right.
Um, but that is one of our biggest gripes, isn't it?
So
But
we've gotten a little off center.
all right, bring us back,
W-
Zeke.
We were talking about the the memories and how some of these more lighthearted plot points, when you put them in there, you don't leave a whole lot of room for all the memories. So let's get into our reforging portion of the podcast and
Okay,
talk about what would you change?
okay.
What do you think they left out that they really needed to put in? What do you think it was okay to leave out? What would you switch? Because as we've talked about, we're not doing a Lord of the Rings extended edition where you get 2 extra hours. It's you've got a 2 hour film and you can only fit in 2 hours worth of content. So what do you do? What do you change? Do you pare any scenes down? Do you what are you gonna do?
Well, the answer is yes. There are things that you need, and let's let's run through the important stuff that you need. You need to have Slughorn come to Hogwarts because you're after the memory. You have so you have to have the scenes with him there. You have to have potions class. You have to have Harry trying to buddy up to him. You have to show the memory of Voldemort, while Tom Riddle at the time and Slughorn, you know, where Slughorn or Tom Riddle as whatever corners him and asks him the question, but it's the modified memory. So you have to wonder what was said that entire time as you move forward. Um, and then so you have to have that arc. And so you can't get rid of things like um, the Slug Club. You can't get rid of potions class. You can't get rid of there's like the scene where Ron eats the snacks or whatever that were on Harry's bed and is poisoned, by a love potion. And then they go and he ends up drinking the poison mead that was meant for Dumbledore, and all of these things. So you can't miss any of that. You need the Draco arc, where and can we point out that Harry was right the entire time and everyone was like gaslighting him that he was weird and
Right.
like just biased or whatever, but he was right.
He
Draco
was
was
right.
trying to kill Dumbledore and he was behind all of the attacks and you know. So Harry was right. Let's just take a moment of silence for that. And moving on. Now, so you have that. You need the attempts, like in the book, Draco is getting more and more desperate, and that's why he is attempting to um, kill Dumbledore. That's why he does the cursed locket that Katie Bell touches, and then he's got, the mead that Slughorn was going to give to Dumbledore as a Christmas present, and you have these things where he's getting desperate and he's not sure he's going to fix the vanishing cabinet, and so um you miss out on that entire arc of this is an important point um if you take any of that out. So those are the things that you really need leading up to going to the cave, right?
Right.
But again, I feel like you need to add the memories in. You need at least the memory of uh Tom murdering the old lady and
Right.
meeting with her and seeing the Helga Hufflepuff cup and the locket of Slytherin. Um, because you need to know that, yeah, Voldemort has kind of collected things and turned them into Horcruxes. You need all of the pieces to come together so Harry has some idea what he's looking for.
Right.
And you kind of need an idea of like, they don't even have a discussion in the movie of okay, yeah, he's after seven of them, and to be honest, based on what we've seen, he probably has a locket of whatever, or he has the locket and the cup. They've disappeared around him. The only place he ever felt at home was Hogwarts, so I'm sure he you know would have loved one from all of the founders. A collectible. You don't have any of that. If you'd had just a brief 3 or 4 minute discussion there, that would have been, that would have just set up the rest of the films. Like, yeah, he would have loved that. I don't think, it's like he may have gotten something from Ravenclaw. The only known relic of Godric Gryffindor is the sword, and that's what 2 minutes and you're fine there. But then, it's like, okay, well, what do you take out to add that in? And and I guess you have to decide if you're going to cut out the Quidditch stuff, if you're going to cut out Ron and Lavender's arc, um, and if and I guess well let's start here, Zach. The Christmas scene, which is like they have this weird attack on the burrow that
Hmm.
wasn't in the books as far as I remember. I don't know why they did that. Do you know what I'm talking about there?
I do, and the only thing that I can think of is that honestly, book six is kind of a slower book. You know, it's not exciting to where there are big events happening left and right. It's a slow burn. It's you're in class with Dumbledore. You know, you're learning about your enemy. And while that's great for a book, it's kind of boring for a film, especially a film that is kind of turned into an action series a little bit.
Right.
And probably the filmmakers thought that we need some more action. It's been dead for too long here in the middle of the film.
See, I understand that, but as you're talking, I thought, you know what? You know what you could have done, and the change that I would have made is show more memories, but you can make the like you can embellish the memories a little bit.
Absolutely.
Like the uncle, you could have the uncle attacking Tom Riddle Sr., or
Hmm.
you can have a fight between Tom Riddle Jr. and his uncle, whose name
I think,
I can't remember. Like there could be a duel there.
hmm I
You
think that would have been much better. And I like what you say, embellish the memories a little bit. You know, have trying to think what other memories there are. Show the memory of Dumbledore and Voldemort when Voldemort's asking for a defense against the dark arts position to teach. And maybe you have a lot of tension there, you know, like is there a fight gonna break out? Maybe you have a fight break out. I don't know.
right,
But don't don't cut out portions of the book and then add something that is just there for action, you
right.
know?
Because you can, like I said, embellish something, add a little bit of like this was in the book, but let's, you know, I don't know. I mean, even maybe like something like this, like you know that Draco is trying to kill Voldemort, or not Voldemort, gosh, Dumbledore, excuse me, on Voldemort's orders. Like, add something in like that where like I don't know, Dumbledore, like someone, a student rushes him or something in the Great Hall. I don't know, under the Imperius Curse, and it's like, what is going on here? Why would a Hufflepuff third year try and kill Dumbledore? Like
Right, right,
you can add things that make more sense than just we're gonna burn the burrow down. Gonna burn
right,
the burrow down. But you know what I mean? You better not. So that's what I would change. You can embellish certain things and you can use the memories as the action points while
right,
also learning because yeah, you're mostly in class during this and it's not exciting and you're learning the information and it's really to set up the last book.
right.
But then let's talk about the action. There is an action scene that happens in the book, and that's the battle at the astronomy tower.
The battle at the Astronomy Tower. Okay, so I said my biggest gripe was how they changed Dumbledore. That was not true. My absolute biggest gripe about this film is that they did not include the battle at the Astronomy Tower.
Yeah,
There are a couple of things that I think they included that they shouldn't have. Bellatrix was not there, and she's just there because what's her name? That actress is famous and probably had a contract for 3 films, and so they had to get her in there to fulfill the contract. But she wasn't there. There were how many? I think there were 4 Death Eaters besides Draco and Snape. And after Voldemort is killed, they're trying to get out of the castle. The Order of the Phoenix is there. You have Tonks and Lupin, and you have the members of Dumbledore's army, and everybody's fighting, and you see Harry save Ginny from I can't remember if it was the killing curse, but it was from something, and it's not just Harry chases him, Bellatrix smashes some plates, and
Uh-huh.
that's a big action sequence that should have made it in there.
Absolutely.
And there's one more thing that I think they they dropped the ball on. Um, one of the decisions they made was to let Dumbledore have headmaster privileges and be able to disapparate out of Hogwarts.
Mhm.
In the book, the headmaster doesn't get special privileges. They have to travel to Hogsmeade before they can disapparate. And when they come back from the cave, they're in Hogsmeade again. And the reason why they hustle so fast back to Hogwarts is because the Dark Mark has already been conjured above the castle.
Right,
And Voldemort thinks, oh no, what happened? What student has been killed? And so he hustles back. And
right,
had he not, maybe there would have been more time for him to recover, more time for him to tell Harry, like, okay, we've got the locket. Maybe Dumbledore would have found that the locket was a fake.
right,
And you know, those are some big questions that you have like what if in the book, but because you take that out, it's kind of like, oh well, Dumbledore was just standing there and he let Draco disarm him and all that kind of stuff. Anyway,
right,
now I'm going on a rant, but there the little things like that take out some of the nuance, I think.
right.
And but back to the point, they missed a huge action scene and it should have been in there. I would take out what would I take out? I would probably take out some of the potions. Um, I guess montages. I would even take out the scene where Harry and Ginny are in the room of requirement for 15 minutes. I would take that out to add in the battle of the Astronomy Tower. Like I think that was a mistake to put that on the cutting room floor.
I agree. Now, to be fair, the I like the going back to my original point, the normalcy, the kind of calm before the storm vibe. So in the
Sure.
book, I was very, very happy with the, progression that Ginny and Harry take. Harry finally, a little bit of romance that happens and, they finally get together. I thought it was very awkwardly done in the movie. So like I would rather have them cut all of that out than have it done wrong and awkwardly. But what can you do? There's just so much that needs to be put into the entire movie that like you have to pick and choose. So I think I would have gotten rid of the Harry Ginny arc and just everyone knows that they get together eventually. Hooray, you know. Um,
Right.
but you can get rid of that. You can get rid of the whole room of requirement scene, other than like if you remember in the book, um, Harry and, and Harry and Draco have a duel.
Right.
There's action, embellish that some more. That could have gone
Right.
on for 5 minutes. And then Harry uses the Sectum Semper curse, and Snape shows up and realizes exactly what happens, and he says, "Go and get the book."
Right.
So, because he knows that's the only place that that book is written, or that curse is written, is in the book. And um, and then Harry goes and replaces his with um Ron's, and then they
Hmm.
hide and he just hides the book in the room of requirement really quick and then takes it back. You missed the whole this is your book? Yes, this is the book that you got from uh Flourish and Blots? Yes. Yes, it is. This is my potions book. Then why does it have Runil Waslib written in it?
Right.
And Harry
That's my
says,
nickname.
"That's my nickname."
Right.
Your nickname, yeah, that's what my friends call me.
That's what my friends call me.
You could have that scene in there because that's funny.
Right.
But yeah, if you pare down the awkward Christmas attack on the burrow, and then you get rid of a lot of that room of requirement stuff, that gives you 10 or 15 minutes that you can play with
Right.
to actually have some interesting action scenes at the end of the movie. Like they have to escape Hogwarts, and you've got the Aurors there. I can't remember how many people are supposed to be there, but it seems like it was a pretty big battle, wasn't it? Like 'cause you've
It
got Harry or Hermione, Ron, um, Luna,
Ginny.
and Ginny, and Harry says, "Hey, each of you take some of the, liquid luck potion, the Felix Felicis. Go, and I just want you to watch. Something's gonna happen." And then you've got, uh, Luna and Neville join in, and
Right.
then you've got, the our orders or the members of the Orders of the Phoenix there, because when Dumbledore leaves the castle, he's not leaving it unprotected. And
Right.
then the Death Eaters show up, and then you've got this huge chaotic battle, and all of it is designed to give Draco the time to, get up there and kill Dumbledore, and
Right.
then a couple of people show up on the tower, but there's still in the book battle and stuff going on downstairs because you've got to keep everyone away from the tower. And then there's just a lot of different things that could have been added in. Like goodness, the escape that was like an entire 20-minute chapter sequence in the book, in the
Right.
audiobook, and so like you could do a ton of that. Um, but I don't know. I feel like that was a missed opportunity at the end of the book.
It really was. Um, so why don't we do a recap of what we've done so far, Trev?
All
What
right.
are we changing? What are we taking out?
Okay, well, we are leaving in all of the memories that have happened, you know.
Hmm.
But I feel like we need to add in one or two more. And if we're looking for action in the middle of the film, we need to add in more of that. So I would say we get rid of the scene at the Burrow, and however long that is, you can have kind of like this montage of video or of videos of memories where it's like here's this fight scene between Tom Riddle and his uncle, or a little bit of action there, and then you've got Dumbledore and Harry talking, then another one, and then another one. You could do that in the middle of the film, and then you can really emphasize the memory with Slughorn, and then so you need all of Harry and Harry's not reactions, interactions with Slughorn. I would beef up the memories so you know what Harry is looking for.
Right.
Maybe pare down a little bit of the relationshipy stuff the drama between Lavender and Ron, but you can't do too much of that because that's important to, the tone of the book and the story and everything.
Right.
And then so you get rid of the Burrow scene, you add more information for Harry to work off of moving forward because again, we're setting up the last two movies
Right.
with all the information that we are overloading Harry with, which is the entire point of the book. Dumbledore's going to die, so um you need to fix it. You need to get all of the information there. Did
Right.
I say that right? You need to give Harry all of the information, all of the tools he needs to go out and find the Horcruxes and get everything taken care of, and. But then really you need to add the scene at the end as well of the astronomy tower, the escape, even if it's just 5 minutes of fighting, like
Right.
fix the end of the movie so that they are running on purpose to the astronomy tower. They get there and Draco shows up. They have their whole thing. Dumbledore dies, but then it's like Snape has to escape the castle, He's got to
Right.
get out of there. He's got to maintain his cover. All of this stuff that happens, you need that for the next movie.
Right.
So, am I missing something? I don't know if I recapped as well as I should have there. You want to help me out?
No. No, I think you got all the main points. Um, yeah, cut out the stuff at the Burrow. In fact, the more that I think about it, I think you cut out the Christmas scenes altogether. I don't know all that much what they add, except for there's a scene that happens earlier in the book where Arthur Weasley explains to Harry what the Vanishing Cabinet is, but they wait in the film to explain that until Christmas, unless I'm incorrect there. But I think that's the case. And if you just throw that, I mean, throw that in a letter, or have Ron explain it. You
Right,
don't have to have Arthur be the one to explain it. You can just let Ron have a moment to shine. And then
right,
you cut out 15, 20 minutes at the Burrow. And then the most important thing, even more than the fight at the Astronomy Tower, like you said, is you need to add in some more memories and even a little bit more of the discussions that Dumbledore and Harry had after watching some of the memories. Because then the part of the plot of book seven is that Harry feels like Dumbledore didn't give him any information.
right,
And that's part of the plot, but it's made even more apparent by the way the films play out because it's like, yeah, he didn't tell him anything. When in reality he did, there was still a lot that he didn't tell him, but he told him enough,
right,
you know. But um I think the way that they handled book six it makes you hate Dumbledore more than you're supposed to in book seven.
right,
But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent again. So add in more memories, add in a little bit more discussion, and I think you could even get away with combining some of the memories. Do like a two for one where you you I don't know, you show maybe his uncle was looking for Helga Hufflepuff's cup at the same time and they showed up and they duel and I don't know. That was a harebrained scheme, but I think there is a way to combine them, and get more of the information across without bogging down the film and using up too much time.
right,
Um, but then at the end, you need to have the Astronomy Tower battle. You just have to have it. It's it's the climax of the film. It's the climax of the book, and you need to have it in there. Um, One thing that we didn't talk about, I I don't have any problems with the scene where they go into the cave, except how Dumbledore starts well, let me back up. So he drinks the potion and it's designed to torment whoever drinks it.
Mhm.
And in the film, the way they portray that is Dumbledore shouting and yelling sort of in gibberish.
Kill me! Oh, it's my fault. It's all my fault. It's my fault.
There's one more, sir.
But in the book, you infer later on that he was reliving the moments where he fought Grindelwald and when he was torturing and killing his sister and his brother.
Right,
And it was, his deepest regret of his entire life. And that's why it was torture, and you hear him saying, no, kill me, torture me, that sort of stuff,
right,
not just the gibberish. And I think again, I think that was a discredit to Dumbledore's character. But other than that, I think that's about all that I would change.
right. I did want to point out, and this is something that you just reminded me of. Um, there's only one place in the entire books, or not in entire books, in all of the movies that we actually see Dumbledore's power up until that point, and that's really you kind of only see the duel between Voldemort and Dumbledore at the Ministry, and you
Hmm.
kind of get an idea of what Dumbledore can do in the book, or not in the book, in the movie when the Inferi are all coming out of the water and attacking Harry, and Dumbledore summons the ring of fire or the whip of fire or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, well, like I feel like they did a fantastic job of showing the kind of power that Dumbledore has,
Oh, for
even
sure.
even when he's obviously weak, he can't really do a lot. He just had this draining, torturous experience, and then he just has this
Obliterates them.
huge, huge column and whatever of fire that he's pulling out, and like you are reminded that this is amazing. Look at all the things Dumbledore can do, and it puts into contrast, like, yeah, he got to the tower. Dumbledore could have Dumbledore could have, overpowered Draco, Bellatrix, Snape,
All
the
of them.
all of them. He could have overpowered all of them had he
Hmm.
wanted to. And so I feel like that was a fantastic thing to show. Is like, here's this super powerful wizard. He could have done whatever. He could have saved himself, but he chose to be killed. And you learn later, that it's because he has the Elder Wand, and he was hoping that by to, choosing his own death, that it would negate the, transitive power, I guess, of it.
Right. Right.
But that didn't happen. And so you learn that later, but he was just this incredibly powerful wizard. He could have defended himself. He could have overpowered everyone. He didn't have to die the way he did. He chose to for Draco and for the, to maintain Snape's cover and all of these things. Like it was really the ultimate plan to implant Snape permanently as the
Right.
spy, you know.
Right.
Is he, they make the unbreakable vow, and then Snape kills him, and you wonder what was Dumbledore thinking. You question all sorts of things. It's not until you see the memories in book seven that you realize Snape was, always,
Always.
uh, you know, Dumbledore's man because of his love for Lily.
Right.
But long story short, I feel like they uh, could have done that maybe a little better. I don't know. The
I
the end of the film could have been better, but I liked that contrast. They showed Dumbledore as this powerful, incredible being even when he's weak, and then that he is more or less willingly accepting death.
I think as far as those two plot points go, I think I wouldn't change either of them. He is, I mean, you're right saying that it's an amazing show of power when he conjures the fire. And I don't remember if he says this in the book, but one of my favorite lines is right before Snape kills him. He says, "Severus, please."
Severus, please.
And if you haven't seen or if you haven't read book seven, at that point you think Dumbledore's asking Snape not to, but in reality, he's asking Snape to kill him. And I think that is a brilliant little dialogue. It's just two words, and it has a really big payoff at the end of Snape's memories.
Right. No, I agree. So I think no, I agree. I don't think I would change anything about that sequence up to, you know, Voldemort's death. I think that was
You
done
mean
brilliantly.
Dumbledore.
Did I
He
say
means Dumbledore, everybody.
I mean Dumbledore. I wouldn't change anything from the cave to Dumbledore's death. Um, with the exception of maybe the Dark Mark being there before. But anyway, um, I think we've kind of covered everything. Do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's about it. Um, yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I mean, overall, they hit the major points. And I say this every time because they do, and they're professional filmmakers. They're going to do at least an adequate job adapting the book into film.
Right,
But there are creative changes, there are things that just were dumb decisions that obviously can be fixed. And I think we've covered all of those that I had a problem
right. I agree. You do what you can, and they did hit most of the points. I mean, you look at the movie and you look at the book, and everything that needed to happen in the broad strokes happened, but we would have just chosen to focus on a couple of different things and get rid of one or two things. But
with. Right.
really, this might be one of my favorite movies
Really.
in the film, yeah, because like I said, I like the tone at the beginning. It's kind of lighthearted. There's a little bit of, you know, funny stuff. There's the scene where Harry says, "But I am the chosen one," and like
Right,
all
right,
all of this stuff that just is kind of funny. The scene where Harry takes the uh the liquid luck and then goes and gets the memory
right,
might be one of my favorite scene sequences in the entire film because Harry is just acting like he's drunk almost like not drunk, but like he's just like, I feel brilliant. I'm gonna go down to Hagrid's, and they're like, "What are you talking about? You can't. You have."
Right.
And so he goes, and then he's just kind of like a little glib with Slughorn, and he's just, like I can see that, Aragog has died, and they're down at Hagrid's cabin, and Hagrid's like, spiders are misunderstood creatures. I think it's the eyes, and then Harry's like, and the pincers.
Right.
Like just little stupid, lighthearted, silly things there that
Right.
I really love. And so you've got this kind of calm before the storm, and I think it really accomplishes that. And I appreciate it so much because it's just a little funny, you got a couple of things here and there. It brings the normalcy back before you get to the heavy stuff at the very end of this book and then in the next.
It's funny that you say that this is either your favorite or one of your favorite films, because honestly, this is probably the most forgettable one for me. And not because I dislike it.
Right.
It's just there's nothing that I'm really overly upset about, like in film number 4, but it's also not, super stand out for me. I think it's just kind of there. It's just like a stepping stone film in my mind. And so it's interesting that this is one of your favorites. It's honestly it's probably the most forgettable, but not in a bad way. It was kind of just there for me,
Right.
honestly.
Well, that's what I love about it. Like, to not to go off on a tangent really towards the end of we need to wrap up, but like, Zach, we've known each other a long time, right?
Yes.
You know that like some of my favorite books are the slice of life, fantasy, progression stuff.
Right.
I'm just rereading the Oh No, I Was Reincarnated as a Farmer book, and some of these others that are just like, slice of life. It's low key, and that's what I really appreciate about this one, because you start out and you're introduced to the world in the Sorcerer's Stone, and then it gets a little bit darker in Chamber of Secrets, and then you kind of have a little bit of a reprieve during, Prisoner of Azkaban. It's not as dark, but so those first three films are kind of, whatever, good. They follow the plot, they don't have much, but then it gets dark, The Goblet
Right.
of Fire is, you know, it gets more serious. Voldemort comes back. A lot of heavy things are happening in there. Same thing with, the Order of the Phoenix. Voldemort's back. You have these heavy things. You've got Umbridge, all of this stuff. It's like more and more intense. And then you have this breath of fresh air before you get to the finale. And the reason I like it and I think it is such a necessary film, even if it is forgettable, is there's like this, and I wish I remembered what it was called, but there is a literary device, where like in thriller books and in, like these deeper meaning, not meaningful, but kind of heavier books, like you are building the tension, and you're going up, and if you kept just building the tension straight through the entire book, it would, like, you would break. You wouldn't be able to handle it all. Something is, you know what I mean? Like, there's just too
Right.
much. And you need something to ease the tension, and you drop it down, and then you can build it up more, and your reader, your audience doesn't feel the tension the entire way. So
Right.
you break the tension up a little bit, and then you can get heavier and heavier. You break it up again, and so all of the same things are happening, but it doesn't feel as stressful, as emotionful. Like it allows you to go deeper than you could for your audience. And so I feel
Right.
like this is necessary for that. And I wish I knew what the what to call that. I just remember it from, my high school AP English class, like talking about it. And it was like, cool. Uh-huh. I'm gonna log that away, just like a lot of dumb things.
Right.
Can't remember, and now here we are wishing I knew what it was called. But like it's that device where like you break the tension and then it allows you to go forward even heavier than you could have if you hadn't broken the tension up a little bit.
I
So I
see what
feel
you're
like
saying.
so I feel like this is a necessary thing, and that's why I like it so much. It brings like it brings my anxiety level down a little bit, even though I know exactly what's going to happen in the next movie, but in the next book, but you drop it down, you can have a little bit of fun, you just relax a little bit, knowing that, you know, the resolution is coming. The climax of the entire series is going to happen, but you can still have a little bit of fun, take a deep breath, and then move forward.
Fair enough. I can respect that.
So that's why it's my favorite, even if it is forgettable ish. But anyway,
Ish.
we could ramble on, and if you get me started, I will go forever. But we are past time where we need to stop and move on. So we're gonna leave it there. Zach, any final thoughts before we sign off?
No final thoughts. Just send us a comment down below. Let us know what you would change about the Half-Blood Prince. What do you think went well? What do you hate about it? Is it your favorite film or is it forgettable?
All right, yeah, we are Zach and Trevor, Quill and Hammer, and we will be back next week with movie 7 part 1. So
See you guys.
see you.